David's confession, "There's someone else," shattered my world, 10 years of marriage crumbling in an instant. His proposal for an open marriage, born from a one-night stand, felt like a cruel joke. The days blurred into a storm of denial and rage until I rediscovered dancing and met Liam online. His warmth and humor became my sanctuary. Our eventual meeting sparked an electric connection, a stark contrast to the hollow life with David. As I thrived in my newfound independence, David noticed the shift, pleading to return to the way we were. But those words meant nothing now. The love we once had was irreparably broken. David's words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. "There's someone else," he confessed, his voice strained. My world tilted on its axis. 10 years of marriage, built on laughter, shared dreams, and quiet evenings by the fireplace, were suddenly under a harsh spotlight. "Someone else?" I echoed, my voice barely a whisper. The woman I saw reflected in the mirror was a stranger, eyes wide with a dawning horror. David, fidgeting uncomfortably, blurted out, "It was a one-night stand, a mistake, but it made me realize..." He trailed off, then continued, "I need more, Sarah, an open marriage." The room seemed to shrink, the air turning thick with the absurdity of his request. Open marriage? The words felt alien. A betrayal of the vows we'd exchanged, the promises whispered under a starlit sky. "Leave," I managed, my voice cold and steady, despite the emotional storm raging within. Tears welled up, but I blinked them back, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing my vulnerability. The following days were a blur. Denial morphed into anger, then a crushing sadness. David, sensing my pain, tried to reason. He spoke of freedom, of exploring desires, but his arguments sounded hollow. The woman he'd slept with became a constant, invisible presence between us. Exhausted by the emotional turmoil, I finally caved. "Fine," I choked out, setting strict boundaries. No overlap, no emotional attachments, and complete honesty. The first month was a personal hell. David, emboldened, threw himself into the new arrangement, flaunting his dates like trophies. The nights were the worst. The silence in our once shared bed screamed of betrayal. Then I rediscovered my old passion, dancing. Dusting off my forgotten ballet shoes, I signed up for online classes. My instructor, Liam, was a whirlwind of energy and encouragement. His comments, filled with genuine warmth, were a soothing balm on my wounded soul. Our online conversations became a safe haven, a space where I could express my pain without judgment. His understanding and gentle humor chipped away at the walls I'd built around my heart. One Tuesday, Liam casually mentioned an upcoming dance workshop in a nearby city. An impulsive thought took root. Would you want to meet in person?" I typed, my fingers trembling. A moment of agonizing silence followed, then, "More than anything, Sarah." The workshop was exhilarating. Meeting Liam, seeing his smile widen in recognition, was like coming home. He was taller than I'd imagined, his eyes crinkling at the corners when he laughed. After the workshop, we grabbed a bite to eat. Hours melted away as we talked, the conversation flowing effortlessly. There was a spark, an undeniable connection that made my heart skip a beat. When he walked me to my hotel room, the tension was electric. His hand brushed mine, sending shivers down my spine. We stood there, a silent question hanging in the air. Then, as if drawn by an invisible force, we leaned into each other. The kiss was electric, filled with a longing that surprised me. His touch was gentle, yet firm, sending a wave of forgotten warmth through me. We moved in a wordless ballet, shedding clothes with a newfound urgency. The night was a revelation. Liam was tender, his touch a soothing balm on my wounded soul. He explored my body with a reverence that sparked a forgotten fire within me. In his arms, I felt cherished, desired. a stark contrast to the emptiness I'd felt at home. As dawn painted the sky a pale pink, we lay entangled, a comfortable silence settling around us. It wasn't just a physical connection. There was a sense of belonging, a sense of being truly seen. Over the next few months, my life became a beautiful paradox. David, seemingly oblivious to the shift within me, continued his pursuit of fleeting pleasures. I, on the other hand, found myself thriving on the newfound independence and connection with Liam. The joy I felt around Liam seeped into other areas of my life. I started volunteering at an animal shelter, reconnected with old friends, and rediscovered my love for painting. The vibrant colors on the canvas mirrored the emotions that bloomed within me. David finally noticed. One evening, he sat me down, his face etched with a distress I hadn't seen before. "Sarah," he began, his voice thick with regret. "Can we go back to the way we were?" His words held a desperate hope, but they fell on deaf ears. "The way we were?" I echoed, a hint of sadness lacing my voice. "David, the way we were died the night you told me about your affair. You asked for an open marriage, a complete dismantling of the foundation we built together. And while I agreed, hoping to salvage something, it ultimately shattered the very essence of our relationship." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away gently. "Look at me, Sarah," he pleaded. His eyes, once filled with a carefree spirit, now held a flicker of desperation. Those relationships, they meant nothing. None of them brought me the happiness I have with you. That last part was a lie, a desperate attempt to rewrite history. Liam's love letters, filled with honesty and tenderness, were a stark contrast to the fleeting encounters David described. "Happiness?" I scoffed. "You called the woman you betrayed me with a mistake? Was that supposed to make things okay? David, you took away my sense of security, of trust. You broke me, and while I tried to pick up the pieces, you were busy chasing temporary thrills." A tear escaped his eye, rolling down his cheek. "I was wrong, Sarah. Terribly wrong. Can't you see that? I miss us. I miss the laughter, the quiet evenings, the feeling of being a team." The team he spoke of dissolved the moment he chose his desires over our vows. "Those things can't be recreated, David," I said softly. "They were built on trust, on a foundation you shattered." He looked defeated, a shell of the confident man he once was. "What are you saying?" he whispered, his voice cracking. Taking a deep breath, I met his gaze. "I'm saying this marriage is over, David. It's time for both of us to move on and find happiness elsewhere." His shoulders slumped, the weight of his decision finally settling on him. "Divorce?" he choked out, the word hanging heavy in the air. "Yes," I replied, my voice firm, "but not a bitter one. We can split things amicably. You deserve to be happy, David, just like I do." There was no anger in my voice, just a quiet acceptance of the reality we'd created. The love I once felt for him had morphed into a deep sadness and a fierce determination to build a life on my own terms. He nodded slowly, the fight seemingly drained from him. We discussed the legalities, a lawyer acting as a neutral mediator. The process was surprisingly civil, devoid of the acrimony I'd feared. Finally, the day arrived when I handed him the signed papers. He held them in his hand, his face a mask of emotions. "Goodbye, Sarah," he said, his voice thick with unspoken regret. "Goodbye, David," I echoed. As he walked away, a part of me mourned the future we once envisioned. But overshadowing the sadness was a sense of liberation, a lightness I hadn't felt in years. My life was no longer a reaction to David's choices. It was mine to live, to explore, to fill with joy and love. Liam, my solace and confidant, had become an anchor in this new world. We built our relationship slowly, carefully, There were weekend getaways filled with laughter and whispered secrets. There were late-night conversations that delved into our dreams and fears. And there was a love that blossomed organically, nurtured by trust and respect. One evening, as we sat on my balcony, watching the city lights twinkle below, Liam turned to me, his eyes filled with a question. "Are you ready, Sarah?" I knew what he meant. A future together, intertwined lives. A smile bloomed on my face, bright and genuine,